Welcome to Dili, the vibrant heart of Timor-Leste, where we gather to champion human rights together. It's an honor to welcome you to the 21st annual meeting of the Southeast Asian National Human Rights Institutions here in Dili. We are joined by esteemed chair and representatives from 6 key human rights bodies across Southeast Asia: Komnas HAM of Indonesia, SUHA-KAM of Malaysia, MNHRC of Myanmar, CHRP of the Philippines, NHRCT of Thailand, and PDHG of Timor-Leste. Together within the framework of CENAF, we continue our shared mission to promote and protect human rights for all in our region. In a world where the protection of human rights is more crucial than ever, our collaboration is key to making a difference. This meeting is an opportunity to share best practices, identify challenges and discuss responses, and strengthen our commitment to safeguarding human dignity. Over the next 3 days, we will engage in meaningful discussions, workshops, and panels featuring esteemed speakers and advocates who are dedicated to advancing human rights. We invite you to participate actively, share your insights, and collaborate with us. Together, let's pave the way for a future where every individual rights are respected and upheld. Welcome to Timor-Leste. Human rights for all, especially in Southeast Asia. Respected, protected, and enjoyed equally by all. Welcome to Dili, the vibrant heart of Timor-Leste, where we gather to champion human rights together. It's an honor to welcome you to the 21st annual meeting of the Southeast Asian National Human Rights Institutions here in Dili. We are joined by esteemed chair and representatives from 6 key human rights bodies across Southeast Asia: Komnas HAM of Indonesia, SUHA-KAM of Malaysia, MNHRC of Myanmar, CHRP of the Philippines, NHRCT of Thailand, and PDHG of Timor-Leste. Together within the framework of CENAF, we continue our shared mission to promote and protect human rights for all in our region. In a world where the protection of human rights is more crucial than ever, our collaboration is key to making a difference. This meeting is an opportunity to share best practices, identify challenges and discuss responses, and strengthen our commitment to safeguarding human dignity. Over the next 3 days, we will engage in meaningful discussions, workshops, and panels featuring esteemed speakers and advocates who are dedicated to advancing human rights. We invite you to participate actively, share your insights, and collaborate with us. Together, let's pave the way for a future where every individual rights are respected and upheld. Welcome to Timor-Leste. Human rights for all, especially in Southeast Asia. Respected, protected, and enjoyed equally by all.
This session will be moderated by the respectable Ms. Siti Altaf, Secretary General from Human Rights Commission of Malaysia. Please join me to welcome Ms. Siti Altaf. Thank you, Ms. Siti.
Thank you, Madam MC. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is now my challenge to handle the session right after lunch and try to keep all you guys entertained. So it is a privilege and honor to moderate this session where we will explore the intersection of economic, social, and cultural rights at some of the most challenging frontiers, borders. These areas often represent the edge of state sovereignty, but also the core of human vulnerability and resilience. Like this morning, we have heard, borders are not just lines on a map. They are dynamic spaces where communities intersect, economies thrive or struggle, and cultures mix. Yet, there are also spaces where rights are most at risk. Statelessness, lack of access to basic services, and economic exclusion remain persistent challenges. Now, NHRIs, National Human Rights Institutes, play a crucial role in bridging the gap between rights holders and duty bearers, advocating for policy reform and ensuring accountability. So this session provides an opportunity for us to share experiences, learn from one another, and build a stronger foundation for cooperation. So the goal of this session, I hope, is to identify not only challenges, but also practical solutions and pathways for collaboration that can strengthen economic and social cultural rights across our borders. And let us engage in a conversation that is both constructive and critical. So we have with us today panelists of 5 representing Southeast Asian nations. So as I introduce one by one the speakers, once I have introduced, please do come and join me on stage. And I will do this in the alphabetical order of countries. So first, our first speaker will be Dr. Adneke Nova Sigiro. She is the chairperson of the Indonesian National Human Rights Institute, Komnas HAM. Now, a little bit of a background of her is she's also a lecturer, teaching at the Postgraduate School of Diplomacy, Paramadina University, where she teaches diplomacy, human rights, environment, political economy in governing the market, and diplomacy in ASEAN. Prior to becoming chairperson of Komnas HAM, she was the executive director of Yayasan Jurnal Perempuan Jakarta, and before that was a program manager of the East Asia and ASEAN Advocacy Department, Asia Forum for Human Rights and Development, covering both Jakarta and Bangkok. So thank you for joining me here. Our second speaker, representing where I come from, is Datuk Seri Hishamuddin, the chairman of SOHAKAM Malaysia, Malaysia's Human Rights Institute. Now, he was recently appointed as the chairperson in July 2024. He has an interesting background. He became a High Court judge in 1994 and later elevated to the Court of Appeal in 2009, where he remained until his retirement in 2015. In 2008, Datuk Seri was appointed by the International Bar Association Human Rights Institute to lead a fact-finding mission to South Africa to inquire into a proposal by the South African government to amend the Constitution of South Africa and how that will affect the independence of the judiciary and the country. So please, may I invite you, sir? Our third speaker will join us online from Myanmar, Dr. Tin Maung Maung Tan, who's a commissioner with the Myanmar National Human Rights Commission. With a background of Bachelor of Science and Masters of Science in Economics, he also gained a PhD in Politics from the University of London. Among his experience is Senior Research Fellow at ISIS Singapore, Head of Branch Ministry of Industry, and Demonstrator Rangoon Arts and Science University. So I hope you are there, Dr. Tin. Our fourth speaker is attorney Crystal Joy Bischeda Armendez. I hope I pronounced that correctly, who has been with the Commission on Human Rights of the Philippines since 2018. Over the past 4 years, she has served as the head of Citizens Help and Assistance Division under the Office of the Executive Director, overseeing the Commission's complaint and referral system. Before joining the Commission, she worked at the Department of Education, where she shared her passion of human rights as a resource person on child rights protection and education. I invite you, Madam. last but not least, I'd like to invite Ms. Sayamol Kayurawangs, Commissioner of the National Human Rights Commission, Thailand. Now, she is a legal expert with over 3 decades of experience, holds a master's and bachelor's degree in law from Chulalongkorn University, and has served in key roles, including advisor at the Office of the Ombudsman and Deputy Secretary General of the Law Reform Commission. She's also a leader in the environmental advocacy, having directed projects at the Foundation for Ecological Recovery, and has worked extensively in human rights protection as an attorney and legal aid provider. So thank you, all panelists, for joining me. Just a little bit of explanation. I think we'll have 10 minutes each for every panelist to speak, after which I will open the floor for questions. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Anike. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, participants of the International Conference. Today, I would like to share with you some of the human rights issues within the border area in Indonesia, which have been dealt by Komnas HAM in our work. Of course, my presentation will not do justice for the whole border issues in Indonesia, as Indonesia is a vast region and we have different borders with different countries in Southeast Asia, and I will just highlight a few of among probably the many problems that we have in the border. There are several issues, if I may not say it's totally problems, in Indonesian borders. The first, of course, in the borders, usually there is limited access to essential services, similar to what our friends from Timor-Leste explained in the earlier session today. So problems such as healthcare, education often happen or occur due to geographical condition. Usually borders are situated in remote area, far from the capital, and also infrastructures and public facilities are usually limited compared to big cities or regions which are closer to the capital or big cities. In border regions, we often also find problems or situations where residents have dual citizenships, as it will be more convenient for them to travel in and out from one country to another. This can be seen in the case in Lumbis Ogong Nunukan, North Kalimantan. So North Kalimantan is Indonesia part that is in border with Malaysia, where Indonesian citizens possess Malaysian ID card. And of course, we don't know how they get it. It's just amazing how people living in the border area find solution for their daily needs. The vastness of Indonesia, this includes border in land and also in oceans. And of course, it is always not enough for Indonesia to set up border security. And therefore, border area are usually prone to problems such as human trafficking or issues such as undocumented migrant workers. This can be seen in Indonesian areas such as in Bengkayang and Sanggau. This is still in West Kalimantan, border to Malaysia. On the other way around, ease of movement has allowed also foreign nationals to enter and reside in Indonesia without official documents. And in my presentation, I will highlight more on the Filipino nationals who live and settle down in border areas in North Sulawesi. That's another island. It's different from Kalimantan or Borneo. In order to address the issue in border area, Komnas HAM with Suhakam and also CHR Philippines, we have signed an MOU on finding durable solutions to the statelessness issues in Sabah since 2023. I know Sabah is only a small area compared to the border issues that all of us here, countries in Southeast Asia, face challenges or problems. But this is a good start that each of the national human rights institutions realize that we cannot address the problem alone or as a domestic problems alone. I would like to present an example of situation where human rights problems occurred in border area of Indonesia. This is happened in North Sulawesi. As a background, geographical situation of North Sulawesi is borders between Indonesia and the Philippines. And these borders facilitates or become an entrance for foreign nationals, particularly the Filipinos, to enter Indonesia Sea using maritime routes, using the ships, boats. And the majority are fishermen or fisher folks who are, in many cases, not aware that they have entered Indonesian Sea or Indonesian territory. And as a result, there are cases where they enter Indonesia without complete immigration documentation. Historically, many Filipinos from the past, commonly known as Sangir Philippines or Philippine Sangihe, also inhabit areas in North Sulawesi. Of course, without proper documentation, and live and grow with their families in this area. The problem also happened because having foreign citizens or foreign nationals living in Indonesian area are not followed with proper policies to document or to collect data and information regarding the presence of the foreign nationals. And in many cases, they become stateless because they cannot also report to the Philippines authority, and at the same time, they cannot also access document or proper identification from Indonesian authority. At the moment, the situation continue because there has been mutual benefit between Indonesian locals, Indonesian population in North Sulawesi, with the foreign national, particularly the Filipinos, who came and then live and settled in North Sulawesi. Because the Indonesian national in North Sulawesi need the labor of the Filipinos to work, of course, in many cases where they have or where we have undocumented workers or stateless people, then their wages are usually lower than the official minimum wage or the wage for the locals. And also because the Filipinos fisher folks are assumed to be a better fisher folks compared to the local because of their historical backgrounds and experiences. The issue becomes more complex with the growing demand for Filipino fisher folks who are considered more reliable. As a result, business owners compete to hire them despite their incomplete documentation. Conversely, some workers manipulate their documents using false identities to enter North Sulawesi or to stay in North Sulawesi, which leads them to face legal consequences, including being detained or arrested. Another issue that is also becoming more serious is when Indonesians married to the Filipinos, especially when they have children through their marriage or from undocumented Filipinos, then their marriage are not legally recognized and their human rights can also be disregarded, especially for the children. They are also prone to deportation to their home country and being separated from their families. Based on these cases, only this case alone, Komnas HAM have prepared several recommendations to relevant stakeholders. First, Komnas HAM recommend that the government of Indonesia to establish joint data collection to map the distribution or the numbers of Filipinos population in North Sulawesi. Komnas HAM also recommend the revision of the border crossing agreement, which was signed in 1975, so it was long time ago, following the law number 12, 2006 on citizenship and law number 6, year 2011 on immigration, particularly on the provision regarding free access to cross the borders for cultural activities, including to meet with families, worship events, and tribe cultural events. Komnas HAM also recommend to open regular transportation routes that will lower the transportation cost and reduce the use of illegal routes. Last but not least, Komnas HAM also proposing to the Ministry of Immigration and Correctional to issue a ministerial regulation that grants special stay permits to Filipino nationals who possess valid travel documents and remain in Indonesia, allowing them to stay in Indonesia in accordance with the applicable regulation. This would be similar to the policy implemented by the government of Republic of the Philippines for Indonesian nationals who wish to stay in the Philippines based on the reciprocal principle. So that would be my short presentation about one situation. There are some more. This is a different story. So it was about the story of foreign citizen in Indonesia, while the second story is about the situation of Indonesian citizens who live in the border area and therefore could not exercise their political rights to participate in the election. Monitoring, Komnas HAM conduct monitoring for the fulfillment of citizens' constitutional rights for the last election, for the presidential and legislative election, particularly in communities living in the borders such as West Kalimantan, specifically in Antikong, Sanggau. This is also border to Malaysia. The majority of the population of Indonesian consists of migrant workers, both documented and undocumented. We coordinate with the Consulate General of the Republic of Indonesia in Kuching, Tawau, and also Kinabalu. Based from the monitoring result, Komnas HAM found there was insufficient oversight from the Election Supervisory Board, Badan Pengawas Pemilu, Bawaslu, leading to vote buying practices and political transaction in border regions. The lack of oversight stems from the limited number of the foreign election committees assigned in these border areas. And therefore, Komnas HAM also recommend the Election Supervisory Board to enhance its supervision in areas vulnerable to money politics, such as border regions of Indonesia. So, I think that would be all, and it means border issues applies to both Indonesian citizens and also foreign citizens who live or situated in the borders. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anika, for the enlightening presentation. I'd now like to call on Datuk Sri for your presentation. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a prepared text. I seek the indulgence to make my presentation from the rostrum. His Excellency Providor Virgilio da Silva Guterres, Honorable Chairpersons, Commissioners, CNF, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate this opportunity to share our experiences with our learned peers. The topic is very wide, sharing of experience regarding the situation of each country and providing inputs on economic, social, cultural rights and the borders of each national human rights institution. For the purpose of my presentation, we could discuss about, among other things, about statelessness and refugees, but due to shortage of time, I'll just focus on the issue of statelessness. Yeah, at the border. I begin by referring to Article 15 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which declares that every person have a right to nationality. And to this there is the International Covenant of civil and political right, saying the same thing. Therefore, ideally, no one should be stateless. Ideally, no one should be stateless. But in reality, according to UNHCR, there are 4.4 million people globally who are stateless. Now I come to the definition. I come to the definition of stateless. What is stateless? The International High Commission of Refugees defines stateless a person who is not considered a national by any state under the operation of its laws, meaning that they do not have the nationality of any country, and their nationality status is uncertain due to lack of required documents. Statelessness can arrive in various ways. Some people are born stateless, while others become stateless due to discrimination based on race, ethnicity, religion, language, or gender, gaps in nationality laws, and their implementation, migration, or the emergence of new states and border changes. Additionally, some stateless individuals have lived in their countries of birth for generations but still lack nationality, and this happens in the state of Sabah. Next, I will touch on the issue of statelessness in Sabah. Malaysia has faced the issue of statelessness due to historical factors, like the migration of laborers during the pre-independence era and current migration trends driven by economic and political reasons. In East Malaysia, the bordering states of Sabah and Sarawak with Indonesia, Kalimantan, and the Philippines have seen heavy migration of decades Oh, you see that from the map there? Yeah. We have a common sea border with Philippines, but with Indonesia, we have both land border as well as sea border. Yeah. Now, the UNSCR reported that it could not establish the number of stateless people in East Malaysia due to the region's complex circumstances. The issue in Sabah is closely linked to Filipino refugees and economic migration, further complicated by the absence of a Philippine consulate in Sabah due to political sensitivities surrounding the Philippine historical claim to Sabah as part of the Sultanate of Sulu. Based on Suharkam's engagement with the Sabah state government, there are two main categories of stateless individuals in Sabah. First, stateless by creation, and secondly, the real stateless. Stateless by creation includes people who lack identification documents for various reasons, such as outdated or expired documents, children born out of wedlock, late registration of birth, absence of identification cards for residents in rural areas. Now, as far as real statelessness in Sabah, it is confined to the Sea Gypsies or the Bajau Laut communities. Yeah. Next, I come to statistics. From the year 2018 until the year 2000, the Sabah office had received 1,335 complaints. There it is, yeah. Even though Suharkam, Sabah office maintains a very positive working relationship with relevant federal and state government agencies, the resolution rate has been affected due to several factors. According to the data gathered by the Suharkam Sabah office, complaints related to registration and obtaining official documentation have increased annually, with the highest number of complaints concerning birth certificates, particularly from those living in the Sabah's rural areas. Now I'll touch upon statelessness on Sabah, on the ground in Sabah. According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and the Prato conclusion of 2010, an individual is considered legally stateless if all states which have relevant, quote, relevant or, quote, factual link fail to recognize them as national. In Sabah, children are at risk of statelessness typically have links to Malaysia being their country of residence and often being country of birth, and at least one other country, usually Philippines or Indonesia. For children of Indonesian parents, obtaining nationality is relatively straightforward, although logistically challenges do exist. However, the situation is more complex for children of Filipino descent, partly due to the lack of absence of Philippine consulate in Sabah and political activities regarding Philippine historical claim to the region. As a summary, in Sabah, children are at risk of statelessness, have factual links with Malaysia, and usually with another country, type Indonesia or the Philippines, where their parents or grandparents originated. For children born in Sabah, but considered foreign by Malaysian authorities, the crucial question is whether they would be recognized as nationals by Indonesia and all the Philippines. For children of Indonesian parents, the issue is relatively straightforward, as the Indonesian consulate in Kota Kinabalu regularly issues birth certificates and passports. For the stateless community, the sad practical experiences are similar. Many have been deprived of basic rights like healthcare, education, and livelihood for extended periods for generations. They live in constant fear of detention and deportation, especially those born in Sabah, and face greater risks of exploitation such as human trafficking, forced labor, and child marriage. Now I'll touch on the Memorandum of Understanding on statelessness issues in Sabah. My colleague, Chairman of CONMAS, Ham, has already mentioned about the MOU, so I shall not repeat them. Next, I'll touch upon individual Suhakam activities from 2023 to 2028. The plan involves continuing meetings and engagements with relevant government agencies, engaging with the embassies of Indonesia and the Philippines, implementing capacity building programs with government officials and local communities, and directly engaging with the stateless communities in Sabah. Additionally, it includes organizing a colloquium on the issue of statelessness in Sabah, which was carried out on the 12th of November this year. I shall now touch on updates on the issue of statelessness in Sabah. During Suhakam fact-finding mission to Semporna, Sabah, recently, 17 to 18 July this year, it was found that several homes of the Bajau Laut community had been demolished as part of so-called state government initiatives to enhance security and protect the environment within the Tun Sakaran Marine Park. We're not sure whether this is true or is meant for development purposes. Although prior notice was given, the Bajau Laut community faced significant challenges, including limited access to basic services such as healthcare and education. The mission revealed that evictions and relocations were conducted in an inhumane manner without adequate consultation, causing severe consequences like displacement and livelihood disruption, violating fundamental human rights and indigenous rights. Immediately, Suhakam came out with a strong media statement. Suhakam urged to the authorities the immediate suspension of eviction operations, advocating for dedicated committee of community representatives, government officials, and other stakeholders to devise a fair, sustainable solution with Suhakam ready to participate actively. Then we have the colloquium on identity issues in Sabah with the theme Bridging Realities and Catalyzing Change. It was held on the 12th of November in Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, aiming to address the complex issue of statelessness and undocumented individuals in the region through Suhakam engagements with the Sabah government of Sabah. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I will touch on the way forward. These are Suharkam's recommendations and the way forward. Based on the activities that has been taken, it is recommended that, number one, the government should ensure the access of stateless persons to basic rights, such as food, livelihood, education, among others, while their documents are being processed. Number two, we advocated for the right of all persons to have a nationality to be upheld. A mechanism should be developed to address the problem of statelessness within national borders and to ensure that every child is registered at birth and is granted nationality. We advocate for the abolishment of detention centers for stateless children in Sabah and to look into alternatives to detention centers. Finally, we call upon the relevant government agencies, civil society organizations, and international and regional human rights mechanisms to work together to address the issue of statelessness. In conclusion, I'll just say the statelessness issue in the state of Sabah has become an intergenerational issue, depriving a range of fundamental rights and an intensive population requiring intermediate intervention by the government. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Datuk Sri. So I'd now like to call upon our colleague from Myanmar, Dr. Tin Maung Maung Tan.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's my presentation will be different from the first two ones because I will be focusing on the macro picture because this is important to know about this context because of our joining the convention. We joined the International Convention on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights only in 2017. We ratified it in October 2017, so it's a fairly recent way. But of course, like all other treaties and UN treaties and the countries who ratified it, it's not carte blanche. I mean, we don't agree with every article in there. So there is a qualifier, a very important qualifier, which is put up by our government, and that is that with reference to Article 1 of the ICESCR, the government of the Union of Myanmar declared that consistent with the Vienna Declaration and Program of Action of 1993, the term in, I quote, the right of self-determination, unquote, appearing in this article does not apply to any section of people within a sovereign independent state and cannot be construed as authorizing or encouraging any action which would dismember or impair totally or in part the territorial integrity of our political system, or encouraging any action which would dismember or impair our totally or in part the territorial integrity or political unity of a sovereign and independent state. In addition to the term shall not be applied to undermine Section 10 of our Constitution of the Republic of Union of Myanmar in 2008. So that's important too. Now I will then go on, and mind you, we do have a Ministry of Border Affairs long before this signing of the convention of the treaty here, and it has been dedicated to develop the economic, social, and cultural traditions and rights of the border area people, who are mostly non-Burma ethnic people. So in order to do that, I would like to talk about Myanmar's efforts to fulfill economic, social, and cultural rights of people living in border areas. These regions are uniquely diverse but face significant challenges, including geographical isolation and historical underdevelopment. Recognizing these vulnerabilities, the government is targeting, together with local and international organizations, and taking steps to improve the quality of life in these communities. Let me highlight some of them. Economic development. The government has prioritized infrastructure projects like roads, bridges, and transport stations networks to enhance accessibility to remote areas and boost trade and connectivity, especially border trade with our neighbors, China, Thailand, India. Myanmar has engaged in trade agreements with neighbors such as China, Thailand, and India, creating new economic opportunities for border areas, for those residing in border area regions. There is a program to improve agriculture productivity, such as distributing better seeds and fertilizer, and providing farmers in border areas as well as in the mainland training and helping them, the rural communities, to sustain their livelihood. And social development, access to health care has been improved throughout by building clinics, delivering medical supplies, and deploying mobile health teams into remote areas. Education initiatives included construction of schools, of course, training teachers, and offering scholarships to children from underserviced areas. In partnership with NGOs, the government has worked to have community development, including improvement of the water supply and sanitation. In terms of culture, efforts have been made to preserve minority cultures by supporting the use of ethnic languages in schools as a second language, and cultural events have been encouraged. Local festivals celebrating the traditions of ethnic communities in the border are encouraged to promote a sense of identity among and inclusivity. Throughout the there is also the National Ceasefire Agreement, NCA, with some part of the important ethnic armed groups, so that there is a peace and tranquility within the border regions. And dialogue is the government has opened the door for dialogue, further dialogue with others who have not taken part in it. However, ongoing conflicts in areas in the north, east, and west hinder development and access to the rights and limit the fundamental resources, limiting our funding and resources. This is also because of the withdrawals and the sanctions the country is suffering since 2021. And some of the programs cannot be carried out in our borderlands. That is the overall situation. And to add to that, there have been a lot of criminal activities along the border, especially along the Chinese and the Thai-Myanmar border. Nowadays, they are using technologies in terms of criminal syndicates using online gambling and online scams, which now the Chinese and our authorities are cooperating to get rid of. And they also include human trafficking of people from Cambodia, even Vietnam and China, and even from the West, to be served like slaves in those gambling dens and the casinos, which are being dismantled by the security forces from both sides of the border. And there's also the perennial issue of drugs that has been produced in the border areas. First, of course, the opium harvesting has always been annual, and the government is also trying to eradicate opium. But the worst thing is, of course, Java and the amphetamines, which are easier to make and easier to be carried across to the third countries. So right now, because of the state of emergency and the sanctions which have been imposed on the government, most of the programs have now been stalled. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Tin. So now I would like to invite Attorney Crystal Joy Bischeda Armendez to present her presentation.
Thank you. I will have to use the podium too. First and foremost, the chairperson and the rest of the Commission and Bank sincerely extends their apology for not being able to attend this side event. While we were on our way here to Dili, we were informed that a new commissioner was appointed. She is the last member of the commission. So as a matter of protocol, they have to go home to welcome her and for her to be able to take her oath and assume her position immediately. So we thank everyone for their understanding, and please allow me to share the CHRP's work on the economic, social, and cultural rights. So the CHRP has basis for its mandates in relation to the economic, social, and cultural rights. First is the 1987 Philippine Constitution, which also establishes the CHRP. The CHRP is mandated to monitor the Philippine government's compliance with international treaty obligations on human rights and recommend to Congress or the legislative body effective measures to promote human rights. The CHRP is also mandated by various special laws in relation to ESCR, and the CHRP, who is also empowered to create its own rules of procedure, has provided that it may conduct investigative monitoring of economic, social, and cultural rights related abuses and or violations. So the CHRP has a dedicated office that deals with matters relating to monitoring the government's compliance with human rights treaties and obligations on ESCR, and that is the ESCR Center. So the office's functional mandates are the following. They do human rights monitoring and reporting. So they monitor human rights situations by gathering data through desk research, dialogues, interviews, public hearings, and admission of expert briefs. We employ a participatory approach in all levels of data gathering to ensure that we produce an accurate, reliable, and credible report. All of the data collected during the monitoring activities are analyzed and assessed to determine which human rights standards or domestic laws have been breached or violated, if any. And in these reports, trends or patterns of human rights violations are likewise identified. Both developments and challenges, along with well-founded action-oriented recommendations, are also presented. Next is on human rights policy development. We also identify policy gaps and implementation bottlenecks and recommend human rights-based policy to address issues through policy issuances and advisories. And we also closely work with key stakeholders, including the disadvantaged communities, private sectors, and the international organizations. The last mandate would be the human rights policy advocacy, wherein we develop policy advocacy campaigns to promote human rights-centered policy changes and mainstream ESCR-related international policies at the regional, national, and community levels. So the following are the human rights situation reports issued by the CHRP for the years 2022 to 2024. We have the National Inquiry on Climate Change report, which is currently being used by the international community when it comes to climate change. We also have the situation report on the school-to-work transition, the right to work sweatshop workers during the COVID-19 pandemic, the progress monitoring of the 2017 National Inquiry on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, monitoring report on the human rights situation of artisanal fisher folks, consolidated thematic and sectoral report on ESCR from June to December 2021, January to June 2022, and July to December 2022. We also have a monitoring report on the situation of land rights. Currently, the CHRP is finalizing the following reports: the situation report on persons with disabilities, the 2024 situation report on non-Moro indigenous peoples, and the National Baseline Assessment Report on the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. The following are, next slide please. Next slide. The following are the monitoring activities conducted from 2023. We have the monitoring of human rights situation and land rights. Given the profound connection of land to human rights, equitable management and administration of the country's rich land resources are therefore imperative. Thus, we conducted monitoring activities to gather information surrounding the situation on land rights. Further, the activity aimed to take stock of pertinent policies in place and current programs relating to land rights. So we also conducted meetings with persons with disabilities. The first meeting was the monitoring of the government's compliance with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the Child Inclusive Climate Action and Justice. We also did a monitoring on the human rights situation of vulnerable and marginalized sectors in the context of business and human rights. So we continuously conduct consultations with the government, the civil society organizations on the formulation of a national action plan on business and human rights. The CHR has likewise spearheaded the organization of a multi-stakeholder business and human rights group, which consists of business and human rights advocates from civil society organizations, the academe and private sector. We also conduct capacity building sessions for the different stakeholders, and we also continue to do work in the development of a Philippine National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights. We also conducted a mainstreaming on the nexus of climate change, the environment, and human rights. The objective of the activities to mainstream human rights-based principles in the context of climate change for better integration in climate change policies and actions. We also did a monitoring on the situation of non-Moro indigenous peoples in Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. The meeting was organized in order for us to document the current condition of the non-Moro indigenous peoples, considering that the continuous lack of recognition of the individual and collective rights of these indigenous peoples, to identify government actions and responses, and at the same time determine points of collaboration among the stakeholders and ways forward. Next slide, please. We also conducted consultation meetings on strengthening the tripartite mechanism. We initiated the consultation to take stock on existing labor monitoring and investigation mechanisms, to discuss the issues and recommendations raised during the HTLM, and gather significant recommendations for the provisions to be included in a memorandum of agreement between our Ministry of Labor and the CHRP. We also had, after that, we conducted a ceremonial signing of a memorandum of agreement between the CHRP and the Ministry of Labor. Next slide, please. In relation to labor, we also conducted a multi-stakeholder dialogue on strengthening the fundamental right of freedom of association and the right to collectively bargain. The consultation provided an opportunity to discuss the government's efforts addressing issues surrounding freedom of association and the right to collectively bargain. We also conducted a consultation for updating the National Baseline Assessment on the working draft of the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights. The CHRP in 2023 embarked on a series of consultations with the primary aim to evaluate the extent of the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights implementation in the country, and in order to produce the National Baseline Assessment Report. And we are still continuing consultations for this. We also did a consultation for updating the National Baseline Assessment. And we also had a monitoring on the human rights situation of indigenous peoples in Region 9 with the Sobanen, Sobanon, and other indigenous communities in Mindanao. We also did a monitoring of human rights situation of indigenous peoples, a consultation with non-Moro indigenous peoples in Bangsamoro, and dialogue with concerned government agencies on the issues of the non-Moro indigenous peoples. It was conducted during the observance of the Indigenous Peoples Month. During the forum, the CHR highlighted critical issues identified through its monitoring efforts, including land rights, cultural preservation, environmental justice, and access to services, among others. The event likewise provided the indigenous peoples an opportunity to voice their concerns and fostered meaningful dialogue among relevant government agencies. Recently, the ESCR also visited the Tabanwa community in Puerto Princesa, Palawan, to directly engage with community members and gather information regarding the ongoing challenges they face, particularly in relation to their rights to ancestral domains, self-governance and empowerment, social justice and human rights, and the preservation of cultural integrity. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. The major activities related to policy advocacy and development are the following. The CHRP did a write-up for a sub-zero draft on the regional instrument on environmental rights in the ASEAN. The write-up was organized to surface human rights issues faced by the vulnerable, disadvantaged, and marginalized sectors. We take stock of existing commitments of the Philippines on environmental rights issues internationally and domestically. We identify the maximum and minimum positions as well as the negotiables and non-negotiables. And lastly, gather recommended formulations of the provisions in the framework. We are also advocating for an effective regional remedial mechanism addressing transboundary ESCR issues. Proceeding from its experience of having been able to conduct an inquiry before, beyond its borders, or a global inquiry on the transboundary issue of climate change, the CHRP proposes the formal development of an NHRI cooperation-based international public hearing mechanism for conducting inquiries or the establishment of an inter-NHR inquiry mechanism. Such a mechanism would be ideal for considering issues imbued with extraterritorial obligations, like climate change, haze pollution, and issues within the field of business and human rights, which have cross-border dimensions. In the absence of international judicial mechanisms that could handle many of these cases, it is worth developing a model that 2 or more NHRIs may utilize for joint investigation through the inter-NHRI inquiry mechanism. An equally compelling reason for establishing this INIM is the refusal or hesitance of some governments for diplomatic or special reasons to activate their intergovernmental remedial mechanisms to tackle sensitive issues among each other. Further, the limitations and challenges of existing intergovernmental mechanisms to address complaints and provide access to remedies concerning transboundary human rights violations present an opportunity for NHRIs as independent bodies within these states to fill this by establishing the inter-NHR inquiry mechanism. The combined efforts of 2 or more NHRIs would not only contribute to a more efficient utilization of resources, but would also most likely result in a deeper understanding of issues and lend more to the findings. Under such circumstances, NHRIs may proceed with the conduct of joint inquiries within the framework of the inter-NHRI inquiry mechanism. We also developed a national disability guidebook. The general objective is to consult both rights holders and duty bearers, as well as service providers and other stakeholders, on gaps and best practices in the crafting policies, implementing programs, and advocating for the rights of persons with disabilities. We also had a multi-stakeholder forum series on a human rights-based approach on climate policy, a deep dive on the Klima Bill. The CHRP intended to closely examine House Bill number 9601, or the Climate Accountability, or the Klima Bill, to ensure that it is aligned with international human rights instruments and to ensure that inputs from the business sector are taken into consideration. We also conducted this year the phase 2 of the development of the inter-NHRI inquiry mechanism, entitled Scoping of Issues and forming the technical working group for the development of an inter-NHR inquiry mechanism, which was attended by the CNF members last June 2024. The main objective of this activity is to document pressing transboundary issues and experiences affecting Asia and the Pacific, evaluate the effectiveness of existing protection mechanisms, addressing transboundary human rights issues, and gather suggestions on the common subject matter for possible joint inquiry on investigation. Recently, 4 national human rights institutions in the Southeast Asia, including the CHRP, COMNASHAM, PDHJ, and SUACAM, jointly issued a formal statement of support for this initiative. The statement emphasizes the importance of regional cooperation and collaboration to address transboundary human rights issues with extraterritorial implications. Lastly, the CHRP also sits as the vice chair of the GANRI Working Group on Business and Human Rights and a member of the GANRI Caucus on Climate Change and GANRI Caucus on Indigenous Peoples' Rights. Generally, the purpose of these groups is to facilitate discussion, collaboration, and international engagement between and among NHRIs that work on these thematic areas. These include policy development and advocacy. In case you are interested with more details in relation to the activities conducted by the CHRP, you can always send an email to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Attorney Crystal. So now, I'd like to invite Ms. Sayamul to present for Thailand.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioners, CNF colleagues, and distinguished guests. It is my pleasure to take part in this session presentation, and I would like to first follow up the CNF colleague mentioned earlier about the light of the stateless people. First of all, we also collaborated with the government agency to protect the right of migrant workers, stateless people, and children rights. And now all stateless people, they can access the education who live in Thailand. But now for my presentation, and we would like to focus on the protect cross-border environmental rights because I want to save the time. Yeah, within the 10 minutes. Before I begin, I would like to emphasize that, like many other CNF members have mentioned, Thailand also faces challenges in its borders areas, particularly with regard to economic, social, and cultural human rights. These challenges are influenced by geography, politics, and ethnicity. While economic development has helped the country grow, it has also limited access to services like education, healthcare, and protection for migrant workers and refugees. It is important to respect and protect the ethnic and cultural identity of local populations to ensure sustainable development. For fact-finding process, NHRCT investigated the allegations by gathering information from components and relevant agencies to verify the claims. It consulted with government bodies, clarify details for components, and engage stakeholders to explore potential solutions. NHRCT then collaborate with authority to implement measures aligned with human rights standards. In the past few years, NHRCT has received numerous complaints about environmental issues, mainly concerning pollution from industrial operations and large-scale developments that impact the way of life of communities in border area across regions, including neighboring countries. This activity disrupt ecosystem and pose a threat to communities, particularly through increased flooding risks. Since 2021, NHRCT has received 6 cross-border complaints, which we have made every effort to address and investigate to the best of our ability. Despite the limitations in cross-border matters, key challenges include first, NHRCT mandate is limited to Thai jurisdiction, lacking authority to request information from foreign entities. Second, Thai regulations do not require human rights due diligence or hold investors accountable for providing remedies. And lastly, NHRCT's recommendations are non-binding, but we collaborate with relevant agencies to raise awareness, advocate for improvements, and promote action through advocacy and cooperation. I would like to share some relevant cases and key action taken as follows. Villagers affected by Midpon Sugar Group's operation in Cambodia filed a lawsuit claiming displacement and property destruction. The company lost the case and sought guidance from NHRCT on human rights due diligence. We also recommend the government establish a mechanism to ensure Thai investments abroad respect human rights, which has been supported by relevant agencies. And we, in collaborate with local academics, has developed a community-based health impact monitoring system for the Hong Sa lignite power plant in Lao PDR, which causes air pollution, PM 2.5, and toxic dust. We recommend that provincial stakeholders continue involving local communities and assess the monitoring system effectiveness. Furthermore, to elevate provincial monitoring policy to national recommendations, NHRCT is investigating concern over Thai investors exploiting legal loopholes to bypass environmental impact assessment or EIA, leading to long-term health issues in affected areas. Regarding the Park Bang hydropower project, the Lao PDR, potentially affecting local communities, NHRCT recommend that the government ensure such project comply with the UN Guideline Principle or UNGPs and place a strong emphasis on conserving the Mekong River ecosystem, but you can see the picture. And safeguarding local livelihood in alignment with sustainable development goals. Additionally, the government has also tasked the Ministry of Energy with forming a committee to review the power purchase process based on principles proposed by the NHRCT. NHRCT has expressed concern over 4 hydropower dam projects on the Mekong River in Lao PDR, Sanakam Dam, Phungoi Dam, Pak Chom Dam, and Ban Kum Dam, due to their proximity to Thailand and potential transboundary impacts on the environment, livelihoods, and border security. In October of this year, the NHRCT advised the Prime Minister that increased erosion might lead to high bank protection costs and emphasized that Thai companies involved must uphold human rights in line with the UNGP. For domestic efforts to tackle environmental rights violations, especially to combat PM 2.5, the government has accepted the NHRCT recommendations to reconsider the strict no-burning policy, address obstacles in decentralized authority, and allocated budget resource of local organizations in forest fire management, and establish indicators for air pollution management across all sectors. NHRCT has been addressing environmental issues at the annual Human Rights Assembly, a platform for dialogue on key human rights matters and policy recommendations since 2021. The right to a healthy environment remains a priority, and the 2024 Assembly will further discuss climate change laws and human rights-based legislation, including recognizing the right to a safe climate, setting obligations for states and the private sector to reduce emissions and adapt, promoting public participation, ensuring access to environmental justice, protecting vulnerable groups, and establishing effective management mechanisms to ensure cohesive policy implementation. NHRCT has also made efforts to push forward the issue of cross-border environmental challenge at the regional level. Since 2023, iha, led by the iha Thailand, has been drafting the Asian Declaration of Rights to the Environment with representatives from all 10 ASEAN countries. NHRCT has been actively monitoring the process, organizing activity to promote awareness of environmental rights. In April 2024, NHRCT, iha Thailand, and CSO co-host a national consultation with 130 participants. The recommendations from this consultation were submitted to the ASEAN Environmental Rights Working Group for revision, leading to requests for approval from iha and ASEAN Ministerial meeting with the ultimate goal of endorsement and at the ASEAN Summit. And after that, we waiting for the final environment ASEAN declaration regarding environmental issue and NSRCT and Asia Thailand. We consulted to organize the conference among with the government agency in Thailand to draft the national action plan to implement the environmental rights declaration in next year. Regional cooperation with and CNF report support are essential to address human rights challenge in Southeast Asia. Especially in border area, CNF can facilitate cross-border collaboration on issues like migrant labor, refugee, and access to public service by promoting dialogue and the exchange of best practice. Moreover, supporting capacity building for national human rights institutions through training and technical assistance will strengthen regional response to these issues. In addition, fostering respect for cultural and ethnic diversity can ensure inclusive and sustainable growth. Through these efforts, CNF can help enhance regional cooperation and protect human rights across Southeast Asia. This concludes my presentation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ayamo. So you've all heard the stories and experiences of 5 Southeast Asian countries. There are similarities where you can see the issues such as stateless, and there are also differences where different countries, depending on the types of borders that they have, either maritime or land, have experiencing different challenges, such as what we've just heard, those living along the Mekong River. So now we have about 15 minutes for questions. So I'd like to open the floor for anybody that's dying to ask a question. Yes, the gentleman at the back. Please introduce yourself, where you're from, and directly to the question. Thank you very much.
Yes. I'll try to speak in English. But my English, I hope you understand my English. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. My appreciation to the presenters, and also my respect to all of you and the participants in these seminars.
Can you come a bit forward?
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe I can just thank you. Yeah. First of all, I would like to make a sort of observations, and then I will make questions. My observations relating to the. Sorry, my name is Jose Pereira. I'm from ZSMP, Judicial System Monitoring Program. It's a local non-government organizations. Our mission, so we are working to monitor the courts and also the national parliaments. My observations relating to the ASEAN community. As you know, that the ASEAN member state has approved the blueprint, they call it the ASEAN Community Blueprint 2025, that has 3 main pillars. The second and third pillars, pillars related to the ASEAN economy. Third pillars are related to the social and cultural community. So it is, I just want to have your opinions, because we are here as human rights institutions and civil society. We only have the power, the competence, to provide recommendations. So we don't have the power to make decisions to address this problem. But so my questions, whether, based on your opinions, whether this community. So when the ASEAN member country, or the ASEAN's in 2025 or next year forward, with the establishment of the ASEAN community with these pillars, would it be able to address those issues related to the economic, social, cultural rights of the people of ASEAN, especially those communities in the border, are related to the issues you just raised, including some of the issues we can say that there's like stateless people, but and also some related to the environment, rights. Whether from this forward the ASEAN can, ASEAN member state, they can address this issue or enhance the rights of people, especially related to the economic social rights in this era. And then another question is if the type of this ASEAN community, the nature of this community the same like European community. So it means there will be a borderless, as Mount Adaritu this morning said, that like in Europe you can go everywhere and there will be no border there. If it will be, if ASEAN has this, the nature of ASEAN community will be the same like this. My question is, because in our border we have a lot of problems, not only human rights, but crimes, some international organized crimes. So when the ASEAN community, ASEAN people, ASEAN countries will have no border, only one community. So how can we tackle, address, or face these organized crimes like human trafficking, drugs, and then money laundering, etc. So how can we tackle this problem? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, those are quite challenging questions, and probably questions that our ASEAN leadership needs to answer. But nevertheless, I think we can give it a shot and see how our NHRI commissioners are going to be able to answer that. So just to summarize your question, first you're looking at how the ASEAN three pillars, in particular the ASEAN community in terms of social and cultural rights, can address issues that are transboundary in nature, such as environment. And second is how can it enhance rights? And sorry, and the last question that you asked for is ASEAN going towards, if ASEAN is going towards EU, would the issues of transboundary crime something that we could address? So yeah, these are really kind of tough questions, but anybody here that wants to give it a try and give it a shot first? You want to collect? All right, okay, so the request is maybe we can collect some more questions. But those were 3 questions already, actually. Okay. If anybody else wants to ask a question?
Okay, yes, thank you. I'm José Luis de Oliveira from AJAR, Asian Justice and Rights. I would like to ask the chairperson from the National Human Rights of Myanmar. Yeah, AJAR also sometimes have touch with some colleagues that are working in Bangladesh, particularly in the Coast Bazar. It's dealing with the Rohingya people in that area. I want to hear about your thoughts about the issue of Rohingya in Myanmar. Thank you.
I can open up for one more question. Okay, I think those are 4 questions. So we'll go and then the last one, and I'll pass it to Dr. Tin to answer.
Yes.
Well, a few years back, there was...
Hold on, Dr. Tin. I will come back. I will come to you in a bit. We'll have Dr. Andika to answer first.
Okay, thank you, Mr. J. Pereira. So ASEAN community is still a vision. It's not yet, I think, established or fully established. The blueprint consists of economic, social, cultural, and political security. When we talk about economic, social, and cultural rights, the issue of human rights fall under political security. It doesn't fall under the economic pillar. So one of the critics to ASEAN is that their division of labor or focus are too compartmental. While the economic pillar concentrate on investment, economic growth, and so on, but the human rights aspect that will ensure that economic growth will be enjoyed by the whole population. From what I know, I'm not the expert on this, are not yet fully translated into their policies. So ASEAN is far different from European Union. And I think it has been known to many of us. Perhaps the other resource person can answer to that. And I think that is, I answer. Thank you.
I think the learned chair from Konmasya, I think, has answered about 3/4 of the question. Yeah. I don't know what else shall I add. But I think members of ASEAN have to be more serious about this regional grouping. Yeah. It's been established for many years, but I think it is still a very loose grouping. Yeah. And we have got nowhere nearer to the EU. I think as ASEAN, as a grouping, we should aspire to be as the European Union Commission. Yeah. But I think we are still far away from being one. But coming to more precise on the question, there is the ASEAN Convention on problem of migrant workers. There is a convention. But I think, again, not many, I'm not sure how many of ASEAN countries are a party to this convention. But I think Philippines, yes. But I'm not sure of my own country, yeah. Yeah. The other thing, I think, it's high time perhaps members of ASEAN countries should consider getting together and coming with a solution to the issue of statelessness. Yeah, they have come out with a convention of migration workers. I'm sure they could collaborate and come out with a similar sort of convention. We can call it a convention on statelessness or whatever it is. Something along that line. That's my take. Thank you. Yeah.
I would defer to the opinion of the chairperson of Komnasham and Suhakam, but I would like to put it in the context of an NHRI because we are all NHRI. So in the context of the NHRI, like for example, CHRP, we have the mandate to check on our government or the state whether or not we are complying with our international obligation, international treaties and obligations. So when we say that we check on the state or the government, we monitor what's happening on the ground, and after we monitor, we submit reports to our government. Then maybe our governments, when they meet in the ASEAN, they discuss the situations on the ground so that they can do informed decisions on promoting and protecting the human rights of all.
I'm not expert about the ASEAN, but I know that the ASEAN has the principle of non-interfering sovereignty rights and respect the cultural and economic right and things like that. But ASEAN and plan to expand to collaborative with among ASEAN members to build the economic growth in ASEAN, because the ASEAN, particularly the Indonesian, there are many huge population of in ASEAN. That, but in terms of the social pillar and the environmental pillar, I think the CSO to monitor the ASEAN try to build the environmental and environmental pillar, but it's not successful. But I think this is the limitation for the CSO and for the law of the National Human Rights Commission of Thailand in his RCT. We quite closely work with the iha Thailand. But from my experience, and we just working with the iha Thailand, and we just know that the Thai government collaboration with the Lao PDR and Myanmar to set up the water test the station in the border area, because we have we face the disaster from the water flush from the Myanmar in the north of Thailand, and then we the ASEAN sets up like the climate change center and sets up the meteorology center in Singapore, and then just I think among the collaboration with among the three governments, and we set up center to monitor the climate change, and for my NSRCT, and we monitor the government because we are independent organization, and according to the Constitution and Paris principle, and we try to destroy limitation and to work with the government agency and to promote the government agency to respect the community right and environmental right, and why we try to monitor to draft the legislation of the climate change to protect the community right and people right here. This is the one of the activity.
Thank you. So now I'd like to call Dr. Tin. Perhaps you can also comment on the ASEAN question as well as the specific question that was raised for Myanmar on the Rohingya situation as well.
Thank you. Well, the ASEAN situation, as you know, I mean, they have to have a very high ambition. But I think the comparison is EU is not a bit fair. And EU itself has lost its luster with the Brexit and then all the problems coming out with new leaders. So I think EU itself has probably been reflecting on how it's going to go forward again. And given the fact that there is a lot of turmoil in that region, including the Ukraine crisis, EU is not very much been touted about even by themselves. That's my take. As for the issue across the border, I think a few years back there was a bilateral agreement which actually was seems to be based on voluntary repatriation plus documentation, and several hundred probably came back. But then there was another round of violence, and because of the terrorist organization. And then now the Bangladesh government is in disarray, and I'm not sure what's going to happen, and that to be frank. And of course, many of them seems to be, the community there has grown because there were children born. A lot of children were born there. And I think they also would not want to come back. They rather want to go to third countries. So there's a lot of problems going on there. There's the law and order situation happening there. There's a lot of people running away from there and becoming terrorists and so forth. So I really can't imagine what's going to happen next, to be frank.
Thank you, Dr. Tin. I think we have passed 5 minutes from 4 o'clock where we're actually supposed to end our session. I think that was, maybe to just end on the note, I think one of the key things that came out of this whole session was the idea of collaborative work is quite critical. And while we do have ASEAN, we also have other organizations such as CNF, the Southeast Asian National Human Rights Forum, which can also provide another platform for inter-country collaboration, particularly on human rights. And the idea for an NHRI mechanism is worth something to explore. And with that, I'd like to ask everyone to give a round of applause to our distinguished panelists. And Thank you for listening, and I now pass back the mic to our Madam MC.
Thank you for Ms. Siti Altaf for your moderate and all speakers. Thank you. We would like to invite Her Excellency, Chairperson of Komnas HAM, Dr. Atnike Nova Sigiro, for deliver her closing remarks. Thank you.
Distinguished commissioners of national human rights institutions from Timor-Leste, Provedor, PDHJ, Chairperson of Suhakam, Commissioner from Thailand, delegates from Philippines, in Timor-Leste, fellow civil society organizations, journalists, and ladies and gentlemen. Today's event is a manifestation of commitment and efforts made by national human rights institutions in Southeast Asia region. I personally feel very honored to be part of this initiative, this forum, these organizations, as a proof that with our national mandate, we could expand our work to address human rights in this region. Particularly for this conference, we try to focus on the economic, social, and cultural rights in the borders. By gathering here, we hope to create a valuable platform to exchange. Oh, I forgot also Commissioner, Chairperson from Myanmar who attend in the Zoom. Apologies. We hope that CNF will become a truly valuable platform to exchange best practices and experience in addressing human rights from our own home country to the region. Our hope that all of us leave this event with renewed insights and a strengthened resolve to collaborate on the protection and promotion of human rights, particularly the economic, social, and cultural rights across our borders. The economic, social, and cultural rights are a very unique spectrum of human rights because these rights we experience on a daily basis without it is rooted in the self-determination and stems in various fundamental rights that lead to the dignity of individuals and also communities. In this regard, the economic, social, and cultural issues become relevant for us not only as human rights institutions, but also as individual human being and collective human being as a nation, as a population in our country and also in this region. as we can see from the presentation just before, our problems are cross boundaries. We need the support, the help, and collaborations between and among countries in Southeast Asia. Just like the theme of CNF under PDHJ chairpersonship, human rights that are respected, protected, and enjoyed equally by all. The word equal here is the key, as human rights should not be partially enjoyed. Not only partially enjoyed by some people, not partially enjoyed only by some countries, but all of us, human. It has to be universal, with everyone can enjoy and exercise their rights. Our discussion today also serves as a vital reminder of the importance of ensuring dignity and justice for communities, especially those living in border areas where challenges to human rights fulfillment are rarely pronounced. I do hope that this conference will be seen not only as a momentum to explore and to learn, but also to continue our vision and to continue strengthen our cooperation to ensure that people in borders are treated with dignity and their rights are upheld. Lastly, I would like to sincerely appreciate and congratulate PDHJ. It's difficult to pronounce the acronym in English. I used to the word PDHJ. Particularly the chairperson, Professor Virgilio Guterres, which successfully held the international seminar and also the 21st annual meeting of CNF. Please give applause to chairperson and all the commissioners and staffs of PDHJ. On behalf of the CNF, under the chairpersonship of Komnas HAM, I also convey my gratitude to all participants for your contribution and enthusiasm during the conference. Together, let us continue to strive towards a future where human rights are genuinely, truly respected, protected, and realized equally for everyone, for all in Southeast Asia region and in any country on this earth. So thank you, and we look forward to meet you in Jakarta, in Indonesia, for our chairpersonship, and for Timorese friends also, you are welcome to come as well with PDHJ during the conference. Thank you. Obrigada, Barak.
Thank you, Her Excellency. Dear guests, we have now come to the end of this event. On behalf of the organizing committee, we express our gratitude to all of you present in this event. And we want to thankfully for all delegates of CNF members from Malaysia, Indonesia, Myanmar, if it's through the via Zoom, and Thailand. Thank you. We hope we will continue enjoy the rest of the day, and we would like to invite all of you, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to have a coffee break. Thank you so much.
Welcome to Dili, the vibrant heart of Timor-Leste, where we gather to champion human rights together. It's an honor to welcome you to the 21st annual meeting of the Southeast Asian National Human Rights Institutions here in Dili. We are joined by esteemed chair and representatives from 6 key human rights bodies across Southeast Asia: Komnas HAM of Indonesia, Suhakam of Malaysia, MNHRC of Myanmar, CHRP of the Philippines, NHRCT of Thailand, and PDHG of Timor-Leste. Together within the framework of CENAF, we continue our shared mission to promote and protect human rights for all in our region. In a world where the protection of human rights is more crucial than ever, our collaboration is key to making a difference. This meeting is an opportunity to share best practices, identify challenges and discuss responses, and strengthen our commitment to safeguarding human dignity. Over the next 3 days, we will engage in meaningful discussions, workshops, and panels featuring esteemed speakers and advocates who are dedicated to advancing human rights. We invite you to participate actively, share your insights, and collaborate with us. Together, let's pave the way for a future where every individual rights are respected and upheld. Welcome to Timor-Leste. Human rights for all, especially in Southeast Asia. Respected, protected, and enjoyed equally by all.